Hi there, Midland, Texas. Buddy Weber here. I'm going to do a video here and call it Multimillionaire Old Man Clayton Williams, and just some of the interesting things that I found of connections from what's going on at my house to this very famous multimillionaire here in town. And of course, the background, most people know where I transferred in town. Previous homeowner had just died. It's suspected he was murdered. Lived here a couple of years. Reported, burglaries to my home, repeated burglaries. Then finally reported a suspected tunnel to the DEA in January 2012, and I was ambushed and shot by somebody underneath my home. And since then it's been just death threats and crimes and just all kinds of evidence was found. Where even like behind the Home Depot store where it looks like tunnels were cut. Google Maps shows that there's a facility in my backyard. One woman's recorded saying that there was 4 3-bedroom homes, 25 foot deep, each costing $1 million each. And then my friend in 2010 that told me about the young girl that was murdered at the oil show party, and I believe that happened in the underground facility. And she would leave my home, and this was my home right here, and we'd be talking on the phone, and 5 minutes later she would be at the location of the party. And I think what she did was drive around over here and parked in the parking lot up here. That's my guess, right? And maybe come through these tunnels here or whatever, and then went to the underground facility, and that's where these parties were going on during the week of the Permian Basin International Oil Show. They're famous. Anybody from around here has heard about these wild parties that go on, and wealthy people, and of course lots of alcohol and drugs and everything else, prostitution, forced prostitution. And that young girl, she told me, was murdered because she didn't want to prostitute, and that's what that was forced prostitution. I tried to get her to go to the police, report that, and she told me high level police were there at the party, and she was afraid, and so anyways, with just all this evidence, a guy that used to live in my house, told me that him and his brother used to go in the tunnels underneath my house, and Rhonda Denver Rogers says that the underground facilities half block away, but triple proof shows that I'm shot, by somebody under my home. I wasn't shot with my gun. I mean, it's clear. You don't have to see a tunnel to know it's here when you have that much evidence and that many people saying it. So anyway, let's get back to the main topic here, okay? And I posted this on Facebook here this morning. The vice president of the builder of my home died on the famous Clayton Williams plane crash while Clayton was running for governor of Texas, okay? And the builder of my home was a company called Tabor Construction. They had bought these lots from Abbott Development. I had one woman told me she thought that Abbott Development was people related to Governor Greg Abbott, but I don't know that. But anyway, Tabor Construction, the vice president, well, there was a guy named Aaron Geibel, okay, and Geibel, and here I'll read this to you. Aaron Geibel, who was the vice president of Tabor Construction, a company that built the 9 homes in my cul-de-sac, was also director of Clayton National Bank. He died on the famous Valentine's Day plane crash that killed 5 of Clayton Williams' executives while the multimillionaire oil man was running for governor of Texas. It was in 1990. Also killed on this plane crash was Randy Kidwell, who was the first husband of Suzanne, the current wife of U.S. Congressman Mike Conaway. Okay, her late brother, Suzanne's late brother, John Legrand, lived across the street at 3809 Fair Circle from my home before I moved here. What a small world. Okay, so you can see that connection there, and of course Clayton National Bank was Clayton Williams Bank, is what it was. And so here I'm going to show you. I did just get online and doing research, and what I did, I Googled, Tabor Construction, and just one interesting thing, I noticed that the address for it was 3217 Mark Lane. So I went over to the appraisal district, midcad.org, and I looked it up, and to my surprise, a previous owner of that same address was my ER doctor at the hospital on the night I shot. And that was when the x-rays were proven to be falsified. And the ER doctor turned out to be the brother-in-law of the ex-wife I'd filed for divorce 5 days before I was shot. But anyway, that's just a side story. The officers' directors, Aaron Geibel, okay, was a vice president, as you can see, of Tabor Construction, the builders of my home, okay. And you can see here, Aaron Geibel would have been a key person. He was a director of Clayton National Bank, okay, on February 15, 1990, while returning from the hometown of Fort Worth on a Williams aviation plane. Geibel is one of 5 business associates of Clayton Williams, was perished in the crash of a plane near Putnam, Texas. Very famous because at the time, Clayton Williams was running for governor of Texas, okay? And when this plane crashed, and I'll show you the news story there. And then another person that died on the same, and this is in there, was Randy Kidwell. And Randy Kidwell was married to Suzanne, who goes on to marry U.S. Congressman Mike Conaway. And it's her brother that lived across the street from my home before I moved here, Jean Lejeune. Okay, and now remember that, you know, that we got multiple people saying underground facility and tunnels is here, you know. So it's being questioned if that home over there has an underground access. It's still unknown. Aaron Geibel died on that same plane, and, you know, he was 63, president of Aaron Geibel Petroleum and director Clayton National Bank. But we also know he was vice president of Tabor Construction, the builders of my home here in this very special rigged home where they murder unsuspecting homeowners, killing one homeowner after another. Okay, and here's another connection. Okay, back to Clayton Williams. Susan Tennis, the late mother of Mike Lawhon, the previous owner of my home that is now suspected of being murdered here, Mike, and then taken to Fort Worth, used to work at the Plaza Club, which was a ritzy private club owned by Clayton Williams. It was on the top floor of the Clayton Plaza. Officially, it was Suzanne's apartment where Mike Lawhon died at, which was his mom, even though a neighbor, Marilyn DeLuigi, told me twice that Mike died in this house in Midland. Susan then died in 2016, so we can't ask her what really happened to her. So the previous homeowner that died 2 weeks before I moved into town under mysterious circumstances believed that he was murdered here and taken to Fort Worth. And, you know, the neighbor, Marilyn DeLuigi, told me twice he died in this house. And then the Odessa American posted one death notice saying that he died, you know, in Fort Worth, and 4 days later they posted a second death notice, changed the location of death, say he died in his residence, you know. So it's real clear that they murdered Mike Lawhon here and took him to Fort Worth, okay. But anyway, here we're talking about Susan Tennis, the mother of Mike Lawhon, okay, and she dies in 2016 of cancer, okay. And then they're looking through the obituary here. She worked at the Petroleum Club, the Plaza Club, private club owned by Clayton Williams, okay? And but she was in Fort Worth where she was a banquet manager of the Colonial Club. So basically she was in managing these country clubs, high-end ritzy type clubs and everything. So and then her son lived in this house, and of course it's suspected he was murdered. It's connected to the underground facility and all that. And so let's go ahead and move on to what I posted next, okay? And this is just Wikipedia on Clayton Williams. I thought this was an interesting story anyway, and I took a clip out of it. During the 1990 governor campaign, multimillionaire old man Clayton Williams publicly made a comment which he later said was a joke, that he likened the crime of rape to bad weather, having stated, "If it's inevitable, just relax and enjoy it." Also, during the campaign, allegations were made that as an undergraduate at Texas A&M, Williams had visited the Chicken Ranch and a brothel at LaGrange, Texas, and Boys Town, a Mexican red light district near the border. As a result of his reported comments, Williams was occasionally parodied, such as in the mock political ad Satan Williams, which appeared on the Dallas-Fort Worth Public Television during the 1990 campaign season. Okay, so he made that gaffe comparing the weather to rape, and as if it was a joke or whatever, and it sounds like he was, you know, a procurer of sex services is what that sounded like to me. Williams eventually lost the race despite leading Richards by 11 points. That was Ann Richards, as late as August, and outspended her by 2-1. During his concession speech, Texas television station showed Williams glibly telling supporters, "I've got some good news and bad news. The bad news is we lost. The good news is that it's not the end of the world." When the crowd urged him to try again in 4 years, he told his supporters, "I may be an Aggie, but I'm not crazy." Okay, and so you can go up there and look that up on Wikipedia about Clayton Williams and his very famous gaffe that he made about rape. Okay, and so then the next news article I found here, and I did a little write-up. Rick Perry was governor of Texas when my phone lines were cut before I was ambushed and shot inside my home, but he's now Secretary of Energy appointed by President Trump. Okay, and so Rick Perry, the current Secretary of Energy, was the governor of Texas when, I'm ambushed and shot, and when the secret police were caught in my house and all that. They faked x-rays and mutilated and dismembered me at the hospital, all that stuff, okay? But then Greg Abbott won the race and has been governor ever since. And I've contacted both of them many times, both Perry and Abbott, many times about this unprecedented crimes going on here, and also in the many other homes in Texas. Remember, it documented that all over Midland, Odessa, Texas, and across the nation, people are reporting people in the attic. And I reported somebody in my attic a year before I shot with burglar alarms going off in my attic. Shot by surprise, with my phone lines cut. So this was the article that I linked to. That's coming in here, and it's slow for whatever reason. Maybe I shouldn't have clicked on it, but it'll come in. There it is. Okay. Clayton raped Williams to relax and enjoy it. Williams is funding Texas Governor GOP nominee Greg Abbott. Okay, and we see on the date on there. So October 8, 2014. So we know that basically one of the big financial supporters of Greg Abbott, and of course, you've got to own it, right? This is his state. This is his legacy. Greg Abbott's legacy is homeowners across the state are having their homes rigged, and people are breaking in and stealing and killing them. And there's just irrefutable, undeniable evidence, and not to mention that falsifying X-rays and maiming, mutilating, dismembering crime victims at the hospital. But now we know who is supporting Greg Abbott. Okay, it was Clayton Williams. Okay, and then we'll move on. Clayton Williams Energy agreed Monday to buy out offer from Noble. I think this was in 27 for $3.2 billion, $2 billion stock. And so it's a huge payday. The 84 and his family own 50%, and so they got $1.35 billion pre-tax in cash and stock. Okay, and like I said, that come out. So they got the big payday there in 27, and I think that was Southwest Royalties that they sold it. It was the Clayton Williams Oil Company there, and what's interesting, if you remember, $1 million underground facility hosting an oil show party. So the question has been asked if any of Clayton Williams people, or if Clayton Williams knew about this $1 million underground facility, who put that in? Who had enough money to put in $1 million underground facility? Okay. Let's move on here. I reported suspected tunnel to El Paso and Midland DEA 2 weeks before I was ambushed and shot inside my home. That's January 2012. And then a past resident of my home tells me on Facebook that him and his brother used to go in the tunnels under my home when they lived here. I have reason to believe those tunnels were used to get to the underground facility that had hosted oil show parties. Okay, and there's Ricky. I used to live in that house. Oh, yeah, you did? He says, yeah, when I was a kid, there were tunnels under the house. Me and my brother would go into them. Okay, and these are just one of the many documentations and proofs that I have that there's tunnels here, and I'm ambushed and shot 2 weeks after reporting the tunnel to the DEA, and most people are suspecting somebody at the DEA was involved in setting me up to be murdered. I did my civic duty, risked my life, reported crime, and they were dirty, probably taking kickbacks, bribes, whatever from criminals, and said, oh, there's a guy that's reporting crime, we need to kill him, and nobody will know he reported it. That's my guess. Somebody at the DA. How many other people called the DA? They're not alive today because they made the fatal mistake of calling law enforcement, doing what I did. I'm moving on. Rhonda Denman Rogers told me that the underground facility is a half block away from my home. I have reason to believe this is where they were having the famous and wild oil show parties, and where the young girl was murdered at in 2010 after she refused to prostitute. Clayton Williams Oil Company would have a booth at the oil show, I'm sure. My company would have a booth at the oil show. And I wonder if he knew about this $1 million underground facility, okay? And this is a screenshot older. I showed it many times before. I'm telling her, my home's sitting on some underground facility. She says, yes, it is. I know, a half block away. Now, keep in mind, she didn't say it was 3/4 of a block. She didn't say 2 blocks. She didn't say 2.5 blocks, right? She knows exactly where it is. That, once again, that's more. And now I'm not going to play this video, but the 2010 oil show party, you can go listen to that. And that has the story and the clips on information about the young girl murdered in 2010, and then part of it's the woman that called me on the phone. I secretly recorded her. She's telling me there were 4 3-bedroom homes, 25 foot deep, each costing over $1 million a piece, and she said they were having pedophile parties there, and that's where I believe this young girl was murdered, and that's where the oil show parties were held. And so, anyways, I thought y'all would find that interesting. Buddy Webb, Midland, Texas.